Back here on CBS Sports HQ, no division in all of football was better than the NFC North in 2024. All but the Bears won at least 10 games, but when it came to the postseason, neither the Lions, Vikings, or Packers were able to pick up any playoff wins. Chicago, meanwhile, had a year to forget behind first-year quarterback and former number 1 overall pick in Caleb Williams. All 4 squads making changes, though, in the offseason. So let's see how our experts grade them ahead of the 2025 season. We are bringing back the boys, B-Mac and Danny Kanell. Guys, class is in session, so let's hand out some grades. We're going to get started with the Bears. They, I think, are the team with the most to improve on here. The biggest moves that we saw in the offseason was the O-line. They most notably brought in the 4-time Super Bowl champion Joe Thuney and a top center in Drew Dahlman. They also added some pieces for Caleb Williams in the draft to lean on. Professor B-Mac, I come to you because you gave them an A+ for the offseason. Tell us more.
Yes, Haley, DK, I'm usually a hard grader. So if I give you an A+, you earned it. And the reason why I gave the Chicago Bears an A+, you talked about some of their issues a year ago. The inability to protect their young quarterback. Caleb Williams, who, oh, by the way, is a mobile quarterback, was the most sacked quarterback in the National Football League. Never had an opportunity to really show what type of talent he is at the quarterback position because the offensive line was so bad. So what happens with the Bears? They try to find a way to improve, and they did so dramatically. You talked about Drew Dahlman, a talented center, right, that has experience. Joe Thuney, a champion, a talented interior lineman as well. They revamped the offensive line to improve the offense also with their quarterback. That's the first key ingredient to helping your young quarterback flourish and develop. Not to mention adding some more pieces on the defensive line. Deo from the Indianapolis Colts, edge rusher, high potential guy. Grady Jarrett, a leader in the locker room, on the football field. Not to mention he has really, really good tape when healthy. That's the free agents, notable signings. But then you look at the draft that we highlighted over last week, right, a week ago. Going to get one of the more coveted tight ends in the game and Colston Lovin with their first pick. One thing I would never do, Haley, DK, I would never question Ben Johnson's ability to identify what's best for his offense. If that was his guy, if Colston was his guy, he's going to make it make sense. So I can't wait to see exactly what they have in store in terms of utilizing Colston Lovin. Oh, by the way, Cole Kmet, who is also there as well. You look at Luther Burden III in the second round. I can visualize Luther being the Amon-Ra St. Brown type of talent within their offense because of his athleticism and what he does when he has the football in his hands. You look at Zy Frazier, who I love. You look at Tariq Woolen. He's Tariq Woolen, but a little more refined in terms of what he does, but he has the length and he has the speed. Tariq Woolen, who plays for the Seattle Seahawks. I love everything about their draft. And I love everything about free agency. Because of that, they added pieces that instantly improves their team. And because of those things, I gave them an A+.
A+, man, I wish I had you as my professor back in the days in Tallahassee, giving out those A+. I think it's a really strong offseason for the Chicago Bears. The only thing I will say, and this will be time will tell, and I agree with you have to trust your coach, your front office with personnel and what that fits best for what they want to do. And maybe that's the case with Colston Loveland being better than Tyler Warren. But let's see what happens the first couple years. Let's see how their careers pan out. It could be one that if Tyler Warren does and has the production he had out of college, where it could be, man, what we could have had. But that's the best part about this. Time will tell. I agree with you on Luther Burden. He was a guy at one time, was rated the top receiver in the class. Mizzou's a little bit down last year. Didn't have quite the quarterback talent that some of the other receivers had. Shamar Turner's a player I really like a lot out of Texas A&M. Shamar Stewart was the one who got drafted in the first round without the production. Well, meanwhile, Shamar Turner was the guy that was getting the production. And then I also like to add some depth to the backfield. Kyle Monungai, their 7th round pick, was a running back out of Rutgers who led the Big Ten in rushing a couple years ago. So I love the pieces, but I do think it puts a ton of pressure on Caleb Williams. You mentioned the additions on the offensive line, revamping the interior of that line. I think Ben Johnson's going to give him a run game. Now Caleb Williams has to go deliver. But as far as the offseason grade, I like where you have it. Maybe a little bit higher than I would, but I think an A or an A- is absolutely where they belong.
Well, and something you mentioned, Danny, the backfield, there's also reports swirling that Nick Chubb could potentially be added to the Bears' backfield as well, too. I know he's coming off injuries and all the things, but to your point, Ben Johnson certainly trying to make a statement there in year one. All right, we got an A+ off the top. Let's see if we can keep the good grades rolling here, Professor B-Mac. We'll move on to the Packers, who we know hosted this year's NFL draft. We saw crowds come out in droves to watch Green Bay take their first skill player in over 2 decades, taking Matthew Golden, the wide receiver. But BMAC, still a lot of questions looming here, including the future of fellow cornerback Jair Alexander. So what's the grade here, BMAC?
I gave the Packers a B. Let's start with the free agency additions. I love Aaron Banks at the guard position. He's a guy that has the experience, not to mention the consistency that you would like to have on your offensive line, pass blocking, run blocking as well. I love that addition. I'm a bit concerned about the Nate Hobbs addition. You gave him $48 million. He's more of a slot corner. He's been playing the slot throughout his career. I don't visualize him moving outside. So if you're telling me he's only playing the slot, the nickel corner, $48 million is a real high price to pay for a guy. Over the last 3 years, he's only played in 16 games, and he's never played in a full season. He's always been dealing with injuries. So I'm a bit concerned. They didn't really address in terms of adding more edge rushing depth throughout via free agency. They did so in the draft in terms of, you look at Colin Oliver from Oklahoma State, a smaller size backer who's shown the ability to rush off the edge, but I visualize him being more of an off the ball linebacker. And oh, by the way, he's had injury concerns. Matthew Golden, I love that pick. The issue for me, Danny, Savion Williams in the 3rd round. He's more of an offensive project. He played wide receiver at TCU. He played running back. He was moving around so much. He never got an opportunity to master either or. So with him going in the 3rd round, what is the game plan for Savion Williams? Because you don't have time to wait and see, can he figure it out? You need to know you have a great game plan for him to figure out, to be able to execute and help your offense become better. So those are the concerns for me. When you look at what they're chasing in their division, you never can have enough edge rushers, and the same can be said for corners. I really felt like they could have improved in those areas a little more. And like I said, that 3rd round pick is the guy who I believe they're going to try to figure things out as they go in the midst of the season. For Green Bay, you have no time to waste. You have playoff aspirations that you're trying to create to become championship aspirations, and every pick should matter, especially in terms of the first 3 picks. So I gave them a B.
Yeah, it's one that doesn't really flash as like one standout person. I think it would clearly be Matthew Golden. They mentioned not having that wide receiver taken in 20 years. You saw the fan reaction there. I think that was even more than just the fact that it was Green Bay's pick, but the fact it was a wide receiver. You saw a lot of fans, with the outpouring of energy and support for him. And I actually thought he was one of the top receivers of this class as far as talent and what he did. And I love that he went out, and Isaiah Bond, who was supposed to be the guy for Texas, ends up not even going drafted. Matthew Golden kind of overtakes them and really has a great year this past season for the Texas Longhorns. I also like Belton. They're one of their picks that they took there in the 2nd round from NC State. Tackle's really talented. Brinson, the defensive tackle from Georgia, I think provides some value up front on the defensive front. I think the reason it's just not resounding with a lot of people is it's really not that splashy. And this is one where you kind of have to trust is where a lot of role players and players that fit need for what the Packers need to do after being able to feel like they kept hitting their ceiling and couldn't get past, the playoffs. So I'm curious to see what this one does. I would probably put it a little bit lower, maybe a C+, B-, but the Matthew Golden pick I love and is definitely my favorite addition this class.
One of the most underrated parts of the draft was when Matthew Golden took the stage and he went up to the podium and he's like, Packers on 3, 1, 2, 3, and none of the fans knew what to do because they're so used to hearing that go back go. So hopefully he gets that sorted before he gets out to training camp. Let's talk about the Vikings. All eyes on J.J. McCarthy. We know the GM, Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, spared no expense financially in his first offseason to improve last year's playoff collapse. And I don't need to remind you two, but for those at home, if you remember, they gave up an NFL record 9 sacks on Sam Darnold in that season finale against the Rams. BMAC, in total, the Vikings shelled out nearly $297 million in free agency, the 2nd most in the NFL behind only the New England Patriots. Did they spend that money well, in your opinion?
No question. I do believe so, especially knowing this season they will have essentially a rookie quarterback in the saddle in J.J. McCarthy, who was injured his entire true rookie year. So the best way for him to be at his best, improve the offensive line. That's what they did. They got 2 proven starters via free agency on the offensive line in Ryan and Will. I love those moves. Those guys have experience, and they instantly make your offensive line better. Oh, by the way, we can't forget Christian Darrisaw, who was injured, who is their best offensive lineman. He will be back in the unit as well. Defensively, Jonathan Allen, Javon Hargrave, two high motor guys that will improve what Brian Flores loves to do defensively with their ability to win their one-on-one matchups. Bringing back Byron Murphy. And another under-the-radar move that I really love is signing Jordan Mason from San Francisco. Remember when he took over for Christian McCaffrey, that offense really didn't miss a beat. Unfortunately, he was dealing with injuries. But now you have Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason, two running backs that are different styles of runners, but they can coexist nicely in the backfield. And then when you look at the draft, Haley, DK, they only had 5 picks. So it was imperative for them to hit on those said 5 picks. First round selection, Donovan Jackson. Versatility, played guard at Ohio State, moved out and played tackle, didn't miss a beat. I visualize him playing and being another guard, most importantly, being a day one starter. So that improves the offensive line as well. Ty Felton from Maryland. The thing I love about Ty, he gave nice numbers, good numbers with inconsistent quarterback play. He reminds me a lot of my former teammate and former Minnesota Vikings, Mike Wallace, in terms of his speed and his ability to create separation. And another under the radar signing, draft pick that I love, Kobe King from Penn State. An old school type of linebacker that has made the adjustment to be in this new age of football, and he's a big time playmaker, also could be a really, really good contributor on the special team side of things. So when you look at the lack of picks in the draft, but still improving your team along with what they did during free agency, I give the Minnesota Vikings guys a B+.
I'm with you, B-Mac. I think one thing to keep in your best players, Byron Murphy, Harrison Smith, Aaron Jones, a couple of their cornerstones, they had to keep happy, keep them. Also, not making the mistake. If B-Mac, I was on the other day giving out a grade for Seattle. I am very concerned about Sam Darnold. I think they made the right decision, tough decision to move on from him and hand the keys to J.J. McCarthy as a rookie. But I think that was one of the decisions they made that was a smart decision, and they filled a lot of positions on there. Totally agree with you on Ty Felton, the receiver from Maryland. He didn't have great quarterback play at all. He can be highly productive. So overall, I really like what the Vikings did too.
I really like what they did, too. Both of you guys mentioning as well, both Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason coming over. So, again, guys prioritizing the backfield, it seems. Let's wrap up our conversation here talking about the Lions. Guys, they were so close to that first Super Bowl appearance in franchise history, back-to-back seasons, but instead it's the Commanders ending their seasons. We know, B-Mac, that their biggest losses really were the coordinators. Both coordinators headed out for head coaching jobs. When I look at their offseason, though, Professor B-Mac, it just seems like very steady to me. Not too high, not too low. What says you here?
Yeah, I agree with you. They have the luxury of kind of doing things their way because of the talent they have returning. But me personally, I gave the Detroit Lions a B, and here's why. The one area of concern, especially on the defensive side, is depth at the edge rushing position. Also, too, with your star player, Aiden Hutchinson, coming off a season-ending injury. Their first-round pick, when you look at Talik Williams, defensive tackle, he reminds me a lot of DJ Reader in terms of his body size, and the same can be said for McNeil. I understand McNeil tore his ACL, but I'm hearing that he should be ready to go at some point in time early in the year. But Williams is the same guy. You need to find a way to improve the perimeter of your defensive front in terms of edge rushing. I felt like that was more of a need than attacking the interior side of their defense, because Aiden Hutchinson and who we don't know, because they've been trying to figure it out. They haven't been able to figure it out. And like I said, Aiden Hutchinson is coming off a season-ending severe injury, and we don't know how long it would be before he's back to being that dominant player that he was before the injury. Outside of that, I love Isaac at the wide receiver position. They traded up, a talented guy. You know, you look at some of the other additions via free agency. Like I said, DJ Readers brought back Derek Bronze, Tim Patrick now listed as a wide receiver 3. But I felt like they could have done more at the edge rushing position, so I gave them a B.
All right, well, good news is we see them first in the NFL season. They kick us off in that Hall of Fame game against the Chargers. Gentlemen, we certainly appreciate it. The Lions also with the shortest odds to win the division at +115, with the Packers at 260 behind them.